here. So, I don't know if Joe, I don't know, were you at the first listings class or no?
Yeah, I was at the first listings class, so this is great. This will be good follow-up.
Yeah, so I'm gonna follow up, but since we do have a couple people in here who haven't, um, didn't get a chance to go to the last one, I'm just gonna do a short recap, if I can remember everything that I did, because that's already been, a few months with everything that's going on. So let me do a short recap into that, and then I'll jump into the second part. So today I'll be talking about, um, let me pull up my Google document real quick. I'm gonna do a screen share today too. But let me go ahead and get that set up. Hold on, where did it go? So once you guys get a chance, if you didn't attend the first one, please go and watch that, because then this one will make more sense. And so the first one I talked, I think I talked mainly about like some basics and what you can offer to the seller should you get a listing. And I kind of walked through, I believe I walked through some of the high note presentation, what was in that, and how you can utilize that for your listing agreement. So as a team, I think it's important, where these things are and how to find these things. And Sydney, I know you're not on the team, but this will give you ideas too of like how to, how to utilize these things, for yourself and your business once you get going. So don't feel like this isn't something that you can, use, because you definitely can, basically, rip off and duplicate anything that I'm talking about here. Because that's the EXP mindset, right? Is collaboration. So I honestly don't care. You can rip off and duplicate anything that I'm sharing. But as a team, we need to make sure that we know like how we're positioned as a team, right? And what our team offers, what EXP offers to our sellers to be able to provide them with the different options, whether it's a home that they have that needs complete rehab. We have our iBuyer program, Express Offers at EXP, that helps them with that if they want to keep their home off market, if they want to sell their home fairly quickly, close fairly quickly without any contingencies other than the inspection. iBuyer is great for sellers that, need rehab, but don't necessarily have the means to pay for it out of pocket. And so that's a good way to, offer that to them, to have that platform for them to utilize should they need that. We have the EXP luxury, and if anybody has any questions, just stop me. You can interrupt me as I'm talking. I might forget where I am, but you can still interrupt me. We also have the EXP luxury program. It's usually about 20, I think it's like 2,500 to be a part of that. But what I tell people on my team, like if you're licensed in California or Florida, kind of have a cheat code, so you can use our team, you can use me as the cheat code, because then all you have to do is add me onto the listing as a co-listing agent. I don't care about necessarily being on there. It's just the fact that like that's just the rules within EXP luxury, right? And that's how you would be able to get, because then it would be like quote unquote my listing for me to put out there, but that's only for the EXP luxury marketing package that they do, because they market internationally. They do their own like marketing and stuff, YouTube, all of that. So that's how you get my help with that. But you can always just take me off of it by the time you close. So I don't care about, that necessarily. It's just what you would need to do to be able to offer that to your clients as well. Unfortunately, if you're outside of that, those two states, that would be something that you would need to pay for on your own. So like Justin, you would need to pay for that on your own if you wanted to be a part of that. What I would say is just get your feet wet first and then decide down the line, because that's not inexpensive, right? It's 2,500. So that's pretty expensive, you know, to pay for a platform. And so that would be my recommendation on that. Joe, did you have a question? Oh, okay, just making sure. Saw you come on camera.
No,
So I
no
thought maybe
questions. I
you had a
finally
question.
just got my video back on, so we're
Okay,
good.
okay. Um, so yeah, so there's just different things that EXP Luxury will put out there, and different branding and stuff that you can utilize for your clients that way. So if you're not sure what all that is, you can always just Google EXP Luxury and it'll come up with the different ways EXP Luxury advertises to your properties to different websites and internationally and all of that. So it'll bring up all of that info for you. And so the cool thing about EXP Luxury is that they can market whatever listing that you have. So you're like, oh, well, how much does the home have to be before I can market it? It can literally be any price. So I love that because that's just an additional way to show the seller like, hey, we're marketing your home. You know, you're on EXP Luxury marketing platform. I think you're going to impress people, especially if their price point isn't that high. They're like, wait, I'm on EXP Luxury. Yep, you are. So that's another platform that you can offer to sellers. You know, EXP is all about solving everybody's like concerns as far as, you know, the home selling process goes and the different situations sellers find themselves in. And so there's also the Curbio. Now, that's for sellers who have to make some repairs. It can be very minimal repairs. But it can be, you know, complete rehabs. We've done complete rehabs with Curbio for our sellers. And that's different from the iBuyer platform. But, you know, we've had several listings where before we put them on the market, Curbio comes in, does all of the rehab, and then at the closing, that's when the seller pays them. So that is an option for those that also don't have the money necessarily to get their home up to what they want it to be, to get whatever they're trying to net after the sale. So that's another way. Now I'm gonna just have a little disclaimer. That's not an easy option. It can take absolutely forever, especially with the permitting process, especially in California. It's not so great. So you're talking months and months and months and months and months. So if your seller doesn't have that time, Curbio is probably not the best option. And then you, of course, you would just recommend that they sell it either as is or offer the iBuyer platform. So, but as you can see, there's multiple things that you can suggest to the seller to help them. And then of course, last but not least is the EXP exclusives that you can use to market properties for sellers that don't want their property on the market. So if they're like, you know, I really don't want to put my home on the market for whatever reason, you know, you can just tell them like, hey, I'll put that in EXP exclusives. And so what that allows me to do is market it out to EXP Realty. And, you know, we don't have, you know, those boundary or the not boundaries was the word I'm trying to use, but other brokerages, they're only limited to like their one office location. Luckily, EXP Realty is not like that. So we can offer it out to, you know, thousands of our agents, right? And so they're going to see it. If they have a buyer, they'll bring the buyer. Of course, that doesn't ever guarantee that that buyer is necessarily going to come and buy the property, but it is an option. And I'm not sure how many agents are actually utilizing that for their buyers, but I mean, we all should. But that's just another option if they are like really adamant about not putting their home on the market for whatever reason. So as you guys can see, it's all packaged up within EXP Realty. And so I like to take those things that EXP packages it up and put it into our high note presentation. Not sure if you guys saw, but I updated that just less than an hour ago, I think. For our sellers, because I had done it a few weeks ago for our buyers clients. And so I just did it today for our sellers because I already knew like what I wanted to put in there. So I was like, oh, this won't take too long. So I did that today because I knew that I was going to go through and show you guys how to utilize that for your sellers. And so I want you guys to think of it as like everything that I'm creating is all gonna go together somehow, some way at some point. So if I'm creating a high note, more than likely I have a follow-up boss template for that, if that makes sense. So like, you know, once we get to talking about, you know, buyer presentations and such, I have the, you know, the buyer presentation or it's basically a pre-buyer presentation too that I have for you guys, where once you created and customized that high note to be your info in there and whatever else info that you want to take out or put in, because I never tell you like you have to have this information in your high note or you have to have that information in your high note. It's all up to you what you want to keep in there or what you don't want to keep in there. Like you're like, oh, maybe I don't want to keep our Gwilt Group service areas in there. That's fine to take that out, right? So once you've customized that, so say you customize that pre-buyer packet, there's a follow-up boss template in there to plug it in and send it out to your clients. So it's the same thing for the seller side. So buyer packet has the pre-buyer, and then once they sign, there's another one to send out. With the listing, there's just going to be one for pre-listing and listing, if that makes sense. There's not two different ones for those because we're offering the same info. With the pre-listing, we're not offering a certain thing of value until they sign. So like we're not setting up the home searches. We're not, you know, doing certain things. Of course, that's up to you. You choose what you want to do or not do. Of course, showing homes is the only thing you can, you know, you have to have done before, you know, buyer presentation. But that's up to you what you want or, you know, want to do or not to do before that happens. But the whole point is that those are all going to integrate with a follow-up boss template. So same thing goes for sellers. You have a call. So say, Joe, you have a call tomorrow at 2 with a seller. I know that probably made your heart skip a beat because you would probably love to have that, right? So I was a little joking there. But so you would probably love it. Like, oh, I got a call for the listing client tomorrow at 2 p.m. So say you do, right? You're gonna go into your high note. If you don't already have one customized, customize the one for that seller client. And then you're going to go in and you're going to go into follow-up boss. You're going to plug in like their name, number, all of that into your follow-up boss once you have that in there. Or they may already be in there, I don't know. But then you can go in there and click on and I can show you guys this, but I just kind of want to do a overall thing. You go to, you know, there's a little templates thing at the bottom of that email, write in follow-up boss, templates, pre-listing, seller packet. So you're going to click on that, plug in your high note, boom, send it off to the seller. And, you know, you're asking them like, hey, review this before our listing appointment. So that way, when you show up there, they're like, I know Joe has this, you know, this many reviews. Joe, you know, this is what he offers to us. He does an 8-week marketing plan. He does professional photography. He does, you know, virtual tours. He does, you know, this is what our home should look like. This is, you know, he provides a home staging checklist. So they have this whole big old picture before you even meet with them. And so that's the ideal situation. Am I going to say that it happens every single time? No. It should happen every single time, but there's instances where it's like you got a referral from somebody, then you have to jump on a call, and then, you know, things may or may not happen in that exact timeline. But in an ideal situation, you're sending them that pre-listing packet, so that way they see that before you even show up. And so they already know who Joe is and what his, you know, what his value is and what he offers. So I know I put in the channel that I wasn't able to update the follow-up boss template. So I'm going to take you guys over there, but before I do that, does anybody have any questions for me?
Not yet.
Hey, Tyree.
Hey,
Tasha, the only question I had was from the very beginning when you're talking about those packages with EXP. For the EXP luxury, do you need like certain amount of experience before jumping onto there, or do you just pay into it or work with you like you were saying, since I'm from California?
Yeah, you do have to have a certain amount of experience. I don't recall that off of the top of my head, but I do believe you had to at least sold a certain amount over $1 million, like over $1 million, something to that effect. But I'm not 100% sure on that. But that's a good point. Yeah, you have to have, you know, I believe you have to have a certain amount of sale for a certain price point to meet that.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
But if you're in California, like, and you're on my team, like that's, you know, that's the, you know, your cheat code.
All right, sounds good.
All right, let me go to screen share so I can show you guys. All right, so this is similar to what yours looks like, except for mine's admin. Yours probably says something different to get to email templates. And so once you go to email templates, you should be able to somewhere find our Gwilt Group listing clients folder. So once you're there, go to Gwilt Group listing clients. Oh, my bad. Actually don't have it in there. Okay, I need to add that in there because it should be in there. Hold on. Just kidding. It's not in there. Okay. Now it should be in there, listing clients. Where did it go? Oh, there it is. So go to pre-listing template Gwilt Group. This used to look a little bit different. I just changed it today. Keep in mind, again, this is just a template, right? If you don't like the way something comes across, or if you want to make it more personal, or if you want to like change it, at the end of the day, you can change it. But at least you have something until you figure out what you want it all to say, right? So try to focus on our team. Obviously, if you want to be like, no, I just want them to, you know, if you want to change it just to be yourself, that's fine. So I have in here, when choosing which agent or team to sell your home, it's important to choose the right one. This will make a world of difference in how fast your home sells, how much you will net after the sale, how smooth the whole process goes. While agents can't control everything that happens, especially in today's market, choosing the right agent/team will have a huge impact on you. And I won't read the whole email to you guys, but this is something that you can utilize. And then of course you would plug in your own high note here. You wouldn't, you know, you wouldn't use this one. This one says team copy on it. But I wanted to put something in there so that you guys had an idea of like, oh, okay, I need to put this high note in here. So if you know, Joe, you have your own, you would put in, you know, Joe's, you know, exclusive selling program or whatever you wanted to say. You don't have to even call it an exclusive selling program if you don't want to. You can call it, you know, something else. I don't know what you'll call it, but you can call it something else. So once you create your own template, call it whatever you want, you know, whatever. But the whole point is that you're sending this out to sellers before you meet with them, so that way they know why they're choosing you. And yeah, you may have to do a little bit more convincing than just sending them this, but you know, every realtor you talked about there, send some form of listing packet. And so this is, you know, part of your value that you're providing to the seller. You can add in, you know, anything else that you want in here. You can, like, once you're going to send this email, you can even send them a net sheet if you wanted to with it. If you know, already figured out what the comps are and what they would net at the end of the day. You can also include that, but usually that's something I bring in hand to them whenever I'm meeting with them in person. So that's not something I usually include in a pre-listing packet. So this is something to, this is just something to send them beforehand. And so I'll go to the high note in just a second. But, you know, at this point, you know, it's a new client. They may not know you. And so this is a good way to get them to know you, and then of course like you, and then trust you, right? And so I focus on, you know, a lot of that at the listing appointment. With the rest, like, you know, obviously they like you or they wouldn't have you over at their house, right? And so you're just working on, you know, to know you and trust you while you're at that appointment. So I would say, you know, like I said, I'm not 100%, you know, it's real estate. Things always happen differently. but I try to send this every single time. And I do notice a difference if there's a time where I'm not able to send it, because then they have a lot more questions. Whereas I feel like if we had a chance to send this before we talked to them, that they would have, a little less questions about who I am and my track record and what I've done, or, listings I've sold and my experience level and all that. And of course, if you don't have very much experience level, then that's where the team comes in. So that's where I would say, like, maybe you keep the team stuff in there to help you with, until you get that experience, right? And so once you go to the listing presentation and they're asking you, your sales, if they're not asking you your specific sales, obviously be honest, but you can always tout the team sales and say, I haven't had very many sales, but my team has had XYZ sales. So, I rely on them. And whenever you hire me, you get my whole team. So you can, come up with whatever you want to say to that. But this basically, I feel like it helps you get your foot in the door. And even though when you send them the high note, they're not necessarily going to look at every single thing that you put into the high note presentation, they're at least gonna, hopefully have looked at some of it. And so whenever you arrive at your listing presentation, you're like, hey, did you have a chance to review anything that I sent to you via email the other day? And if they say no, then you have your work cut out for you. You have to go through and not that you're not gonna go through stuff, but it's gonna be more work for you to convince them usually, right? So you're gonna have to walk through how you're marketing the property and blah, 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 blah. So let me go to the high note. Any questions so far? Okay. All right, so are you guys able to see the high note? I don't know if it switched over there. Okay, thank you. So this is what the high note looks like. Add in, about Real Trends nationally ranked 1.5% team, and marketing plan, a little bit about EXP, the different areas that our team is in, and then what our sales and marketing proposal is for that client. Of course, it's the same for every client, but and that include, about us, and then maybe if you wanted to add in, something about yourself, you could add that in. But today, I believe I went over all of this in the last one, so I'm gonna skip over to just the new stuff that I added in today. Wait, did I pass it? Yes, I did. So I included understanding the NAR settlements, key insights for sellers to give them a little bit more info on, why these changes are happening. I included the FAQ that EXP put out. And so what's cool about High Note is that you can utilize AI. So I didn't even have to write these things on the right-hand side. And I didn't even have to write this document. ChatGPT did it for me. So I just wanted to give more info than the FAQ had on it. So that was just an additional item in there to help clarify with the sellers what the NAR settlement is. Because when you go to your listing agreement, when you go to your listing appointment, you're going to want to talk to them about these NAR changes. You're going to want to know how to convey that to the seller. And then, of course, convey your value and get them to hire you, right? And so you can put in your service plan as well. I have the EXP luxury one on there, but you can, have Cecilia create whatever graphic, brand this for yourself and include that in your high note. So that was the whole gist, is to, for those service plans to be created, put into a high note. So the way the sellers are seeing that whenever you send this out to them. And then honestly, I would probably print some of the stuff out to bring with you to the actual listing presentation, to actually give it to them. And especially if you have a seller that maybe a bit older that doesn't necessarily like technology, you're going to need to, have a good amount of stuff printed out for them so the way they can just view it. And I kind of like the idea anyways of printing out stuff to have with you at the listing presentation. So, but those are the three things that I added today that will help you guys with explaining to your sellers about the new NAR changes. Because this is just gonna be a conversation that we always have, and this conversation isn't gonna go away. And so being able to articulate that to the seller, because we're probably gonna have to do some convincing of like, you may have to, you know, the buyer's agent may still ask you to pay for their, you know, fee. And so, but it's up to them what they want to do, right? So they don't have to offer any sort of compensation. So, but anyway, so this is in there for you guys. If you've already created a template on, you know, for the Gwilt Group's exclusive selling program, then feel free to just add these into your templates. If there's anything that you want to change, feel free to change it. Just make sure that you're copying it onto your template and then editing it on there. Does that all make sense?
I think it makes sense, Tasha. A quick question on those email templates on FUB. Is that something that we had access to, like the team templates, or because
Yeah.
I don't think mine has that, and I may have missed that in my onboarding, but I don't remember seeing that.
Okay, so do me a favor, go into your follow-up boss and look in email templates. You should be able, because I shared it with everybody, you should be able to see that there. Double check that. If you're not able to see it, send me like a screenshot of it, so the way I can
Okay,
figure it out.
that's
I don't
the
know
part
how
I'm
it
missing.
looks on your side, but it should show you all those templates.
That's the part I'm missing, is just the link up at the top that says email templates. I don't even have it.
Does anybody else?
So
Well,
I may have screwed something up when I was configuring this. I don't know.
okay.
I'll take a look at it. I took a note to follow up later and make sure I'm doing
Okay.
this right.
Okay, yeah, because there's different templates in there for you guys to use. So we have the, you know, the listing ones and the buyer ones, and then we have some other ones in there too. So just want to make sure you're not missing those. Any other questions? Anybody? So I guess with that, who has questions about, like, what do you need clarification on? What are you kind of stumped by? Because I do know when I first started out, I didn't take listings for like a year. And not that I had very many listings that were like knocking on my door or anything, but I didn't take any listings for about a year because I was unsure about the whole process. I was like, who pays for staging? Who pays for this? Who pays for that? And it was so overwhelming that I didn't want to take on a listing because I was too afraid. And so I know that there may be other people in that same headspace that I was in. So, and since I've been doing this for almost 9 years now, there may be things that I'm not thinking of anymore. I try to put myself in your shoes and think back to when I was first starting. What are the questions that are sitting in your head right now that you need answered before you can even talk to a seller? Because I know I was even afraid to talk to a seller, and what you don't, you know, you're afraid of what you don't know, right? And so, you know, I can also clarify those sort of things with you guys on, you know, what that process even looks like. Who pays for what? Who pays for staging? You know, yada, yada.
I don't know if it completely relates to the question that you're asking, but I know that something that's been on the forefront of my mind is I know being in Branson and being a tourist area, obviously there's a lot of investment properties, Airbnbs, and those types of things. And I think that specifically what I'm looking for that I want to try to get as smart on as possible is investment property, because when it comes to buying and selling both of those, I think that's going to be something that I should be smart about. I mean, I remember in the real estate class, they had a basic equation that showed, you know, what your return on investment might be. But I guess just general information on buying and selling either, you know, rental properties or investment properties would be helpful too.
Have you ever checked out Bigger Pockets?
Negative. I don't know what that is.
Okay, that's what I would say. Bigger Pockets, if you go there, that's focused on investors, and you can even get clients from there too.
It's a great recommendation. In fact, that's like my morning ritual is I go for a walk or a run and I listen to a Bigger Pockets episode. It's fantastic. And then Justin, of course, I'm happy to help with any of the investment stuff that you're having questions on. Because I've been an investment buyer for a number of years. So I'm happy to help, at least from that buyer's perspective, what things I look for when I talk with realtors about finding good investment properties.
That's awesome. I appreciate that, Joe. Yeah, I just pulled up that website. I'll save it to my favorites and definitely check it out today then. And then yeah, I'll definitely be reaching out to you with questions for sure. Appreciate it.
But
Yeah, we can even do a training on that in the future too, working with investor clients. Because that's just like a whole different animal, right? So.
I think that'd be awesome because yeah, you're gonna have investor clients who are local, who are in Branson, and they wanna like run those places themselves, but you're gonna have a whole lot that are probably not local and are gonna be reliant heavily on a team on the ground. So if Justin becomes like that person's, realtor team on the ground, that's a good news situation to be. That's a good situation to be in.
Oh
Yeah, I
yeah,
think that class would definitely be helpful. Yeah, concur.
awesome. Yeah, that's a good way to, get more investor clients, work with them, and, then I feel like I, I feel like investor clients can be hard to work with, but at the same time, if you find the right one, they can be really lucrative for you, for your business, so.
Yeah, it's gonna really depend on that investor's kind of goals because some are gonna have that buy and hold strategy. Others are gonna be like the fix and flip. So wholesalers are a whole nother a whole nother group that's like uh I don't know. There's they're more like just middlemen, but it's interesting stuff.
Hey, do you guys get a lot of spam messages from like bots trying to act like investors?
Oh yeah,
Okay,
happens
yeah,
all
because
the
I
time.
started getting those left and right, and it'll be weird to be like, "Hi, my name's Olivia. I am Jake," and I'm like, "What?"
Yeah, no, we could get a lot of those.
Okay, yeah, I figured.
They just have a database, right? They're just going through their realtor database. Cause I get text
Those
messages on the daily, do you have a fix or flip, like blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay. I just
yeah,
ignored most of them.
everybody wants to buy my house or houses. Everybody wants to sell us leads. I'm like, dude, seriously, take me off your list. Actually, it's to the
Right.
point where if my phone recognizes it potential spam, I just don't answer.
Oh yeah, no, me either. I used to answer and just, politely be like, no, thank you, hang up. Now I'm just like, I'm just not answering the phone. No, thank you. Like if it's important, somebody will leave a message or text me, like we're in 2024, right? Text messages are a thing. So, um, so back to the listing stuff though. What help do you guys need to understand, like what the timeline would be, like if you start working with the seller and they want to list by, say, the end of August, right? Do you guys understand the timeline of events that would happen from the point where they sign that listing agreement to the time that it's on the market? Can I help clarify anything from the, because that was part of my question too, because it's a lot of like strategy of like, okay, this is when we're gonna do this and this is when we're gonna do that.
It definitely looks like it would be an accelerated timeline. I mean, if somebody wanted to list at the end of August, like
Yes,
this month, but I kind of read it as our templates look like, hey, the perfect way to sell is following this 8-week process. And if you compress that timeline, you're gonna have to make some concessions. You're gonna have to there's gonna be a give and take. We might not be able to do the perfect listing, but we could still get your house listed by the end of the month and have offers coming in.
Yeah, because it's like you only have a little, like you think about it, like if you only have a little over 3 weeks, and you gotta think like if their home isn't in perfect condition, if they have a lot of stuff to do and they're like, it's gonna, they have to repair this, they have to repair that, then they gotta, clean the floors, they gotta, clean the carpets, they gotta paint they gotta paint the front of the house, they gotta do this, they gotta do that. That timeline is likely not gonna happen, or their property is gonna be put up on the market and it's not gonna have all the things like you said, Joe. It's not gonna have all the things it needs to have in order to launch, right? So ideally, we have a month's leeway before the home is put up on the market. But make sure, and this is what we've learned over time by just talking to different people, and you learn a lot when you don't take, whenever somebody decides not to list with you. And I always ask why, because I always want to know. And sometimes people would say, well, you needed this much time to get my home ready. And I'm like, you know what? Somebody tells me they want to list their home next week, it's going to happen. Just know that it may not happen perfectly, and we may not have the home may not be ready at that point. So we always let people know we'll work with their, we can be flexible. If you need less time, more time, whatever, we can do it. But ideally, if
Hey,
they have repairs, they just got to figure
Tasha,
out, like, oh, go ahead.
I've got a question about that. So
Yeah.
let's say you get somebody who says, "Listen, I need to sell this house. Like, I need to get this thing listed next week." Our team materials all talk about professional photography, Matterport if you can do it. All that kind of stuff. What if you're dealing with somebody who really is on that really short timeline? I mean, I suppose we could take our phones and fire some pictures and put them on the MLS and their house is going to be listed, but they really need to understand that,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, so it really depends on the state of the house, right? If you walk in and you're like, they have stuff everywhere, and no judgments on anybody, but they have stuff everywhere and it needs a deep clean, it needs this, it needs that. You're going to talk to them like, hey, how long do you think that it will take you to make all of these repairs, declutter, and clean everything up? And so you kind of bring them back to that timeline and like, okay, if you think, and most people work, right? And so they don't necessarily have the time to do all of that. So it's like you're basing it upon like their work schedule, when they think they can get it done by. Now, if they have, that shortened timeline, you're like, well, I hate to say this, but Mr. and Mr. Seller, like, you say that you want to have your home up by the end of this month. That means you need to have everything done by 8/21 at the latest. Do you think that you can make that happen? Because you think about it, you need to get photos done, you need to get, all of your marketing package completely done. And based upon your photographer's schedule, you need to schedule that out now, so that way they can come out to the property. So we need to know, when they can have the house ready by. If they're like, well, I can't have it ready until the 28th, you at that point you'd have to talk to your photographer slash media company and be like, hey, we'll need expedited, because usually and of course it's going to depend on the media company, but our photographer can be backed up by a week. So like we need a week to be able to get that media in and do everything else. In the meantime, of course, you can work on the, putting everything into the MLS, getting your description done, getting everything done, but what's related to the media. So we can make it happen. It's just an expedited timeline. Now, of course, you can talk about like if it's, by October. And then, of course, there's the timeline of like, well, we need to sell this property, but we want to buy another one. And then what if they're buying in a different state? So you're going to talk to them about those sort of things. And like, do you need to sell this property in order to buy the next one? Yes. And so there's a lot of like, working through dates and like, okay, this is when you need to leave by here. And, oh, well, I need to have, if we list in October, I need to have it sold by, January. So you're going through the timeline of like, okay, you're not only talking through the timeline of preparation, you're talking through the timeline of sale as well. Or like, okay, if we have it listed by October 1st and you need to sell it and be out of it by January 1st, then, you know, you're gonna calculate how long it's been taking for, you know, the homes to sell, like on your side, you're calculating how, before you go to the listing appointment, how many average days on market is it for your market right now? And seasonally, of course, because even though we're in this really funky market right now, it used to be a seasonal thing. In the summer, homes are selling like crazy. In the fall/winter season, homes don't sell as quickly. So you're like, okay, if it takes 60 days to get this property sold, and that takes us to November, and then you're talking a 30-day escrow. So we can make it happen so long as it happens in that time frame. So did that make sense to everybody? Am I losing anybody?
Makes sense.
Go ahead, Cindy.
Oh no, I was just saying it makes sense.
Okay, good. So yeah, there's, we can share a spreadsheet with you guys that David had made that puts it in for like, hey, if you need to sell by this date and be out by this date, then this is what our timeline looks like. This is how much time you have to get ready. Because if they're like, well, you know, I need to be out by next month, then we need to get your home on the market like yesterday. Especially in a market like this, right? So, you know, always calculate it based upon how many days it's gonna take them to sell. You know, preface it always with like a 30-day escrow, because that's the norm right now. And so you're walking through that and be like, okay, you know, given your timeline, this is how much time we need to take to prepare your home. And of course, you may be walking into people's home and they're like, all they have to do is put away some stuff and clean the house up. Then, you know, that's the ideal situation, right? But chances are most people don't live in that state, right? People need time to put, you know, even the cleanest people need time to put stuff away and declutter and depersonalize and do all of that. So we usually need at least a few week leeway with them. And it also depends on how on the ball people are whenever it comes to home market prep. So you're checking in with them on a weekly basis, like, where are you, you know, on, you know, the declutter, like, is there anything that I can help with? Are you running into any hurdles? I know life can be busy, you know, so you're keeping, you know, a status update with them to see how all of that is going, because you're not assuming that by that, you know, certain date that you talked about, that they're going to have it done. I feel like I've always had pretty good clients though. If I say like, hey, we got to be ready by this date, of course I'm checking in with them, but they've always been really good at being on time. But you are going to run into situations where, you know, people are just dealing with life and things. And so, you know, you just assume that you always need to check in and check on that status, because if they're behind it all, then of course that delays when you can get their home on the market. But we have that spreadsheet too that could help you guys with, you know, presenting that to the seller. And that would be something that you can, you know, if you know even a little bit, Tyreek, we would need to share it with you. I'd have to ask David to share that somewhere. That's something that we haven't, that I believe we've shared before. Not sure why, but we haven't shared it yet. But that's something that we can share with you guys to help make that, you know, timeline make sense. And then you can print it out and bring it with you, or if you want to just put it on your laptop, so that way you can kind of do it right there at the listing presentation, you can. But we usually like have some sort of timeline printed out. If we don't know anything, we just assume. But if we know like what their timeline is, then we can, you know, customize it a little bit more. And say, well, if your home's sold in this amount of days, what would you do? Because not everybody has somewhere to go, right? So if you're like, well, what if you put your home on the market and it's sold within a week instead of, you know, 30+ days, then what would you do? Because people would need to know that, right? If they don't have anywhere else to go, if they don't have, you know, a home lined up. So that's also a conversation to have. So, but yeah, we always walk through timeline. I gotta tell you, our listing appointments, some people say, oh, I'm in and out of a listing in 30 minutes. I'm like, I don't understand how you had time to talk about everything. Like, we're very, very detailed. And so I don't know how people have the that full discussion in 30 minutes. I'm like, what did you even do? Like, I can take 10 minutes just to go through the listing contract. Like, what is happening? Why aren't people like talking about that? Like what are people talking about? Nothing. You're just talking about, you know, the listing price, and then they sign a listing agreement. I don't even know. I feel like we need so much time. We spend 2+ hours at a listing appointment. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do. I'm just saying like that's just how long it takes. It's kind of a ridiculous amount of time. We've spent 3+ hours at a listing appointment before, especially if you're getting along with people. Or if people are being really difficult and have a ton of questions, then it can take you a little while. But and as you guys probably know, David is a very talkative person, and so we usually spend 2+ hours there. So, but you know, an hour there should suffice to, you know, talk through everything. We literally like, so when we get to the house, we always ask for a walkthrough of the home, and one of us takes pictures and one of us writes notes as we're going through. And the reason why we do this is the pictures are only for ourselves. It's not for anything to put up on the market. And that's what we explain to them. We're like, do you mind if we take pictures? It's just for us. Like, we're not going to share this, you know, publicly. This is just for us. And so the reason why we do that is because when we get home, we don't remember like, ooh, what kind of flooring did they have? What kind of, you know, countertops were those? And of course, I'm not saying they're going to always know. You might have to ask the seller, but we can use those when we're putting in info into the MLS. And so we're not having to go back to the seller for every little thing. And we're like, why are you asking me this? You're at the house. So taking note of the condition, what they may need to get done, what kind of flooring they have, any upgrades that they said that they have to the home, anything like that. And you're taking pictures of everything to, you know, that way you can remember, and, you know, of course, asking like, you know, what kind of water heater they have. Some's gas, some are electric. Same thing with dryers. In California, it's mostly gas. In Florida, it's mostly electric. And so those are sort of things that, like, you're anticipating that you're going to get the listing. And so you're going through those things so that way you have those for whenever you do go to put it into the MLS, and go into every appointment like you're going to get that listing. You're bringing the listing paperwork with you. You're bringing all of the other paperwork with you. You're bringing your 8-week marketing plan. You're bringing your staging checklist. You're bringing, you know, the NAR stuff. You're bringing your seller services document. You're bringing all of those with you to the listing presentation whenever you show up. And I always make another copy of it to give to them. And of course, if it's a husband and wife, you could always print out two so that they both have one. And so you can always do that if you want to. Of course, you can print out, you know, the comps, bring those with you. So anything like that, you'll want to make sure to print out at least 2 copies. I always put the other copy in a folder, so that way I can leave that with them, so the way they can review that on their own. But I always have a copy of the listing agreement. And so I basically have a template, and I just don't fill in yet for the commission or the listing price, because those are things that we're negotiating at the listing, you know, presentation. And so I fill those in. Everything else is filled in online. Those are the things that I fill in person. And then of course, anything that they want to exclude or include for the listing, or with the sale, I mean. And so things like that, you're entering in by hand at the listing appointment, and at least have like everything else filled out, so that way you don't have to sit there and think like, oh, what do my normal templates say? Everything else is filled out. So that way you can just negotiate with them right there, right? Like, okay, we're going to list at $750, and this is going to be my commission amount. And then you can just, you know, go through that with them. I would say we spend the most time on what the home is going to sell for. And that's usually the biggest part of our conversation when it comes to that. And then, you know, after we figure those things out, I'm going through the entire listing contract, and explaining everything to them. But I forgot to say, once we go through, take pictures of everything, It's like the usual, like everybody's gonna tell you in any training that you go to, is sit down at the kitchen table. Don't sit down across from them. Try to sit like next to them instead of across from them, because it's like a me versus you situation. So, but I can't say that I've always sat at the kitchen table. Sometimes I sit at the couch. Sometimes there's different situations where there's not space to sit at the table. They may only have like 3 chairs or something like that, or 2 chairs or something like that. So, but if you can sit at the kitchen table, sit at the head of the table is what they say, to do. And then we start going over like, their motivation to sell, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, like, why are you selling? And you may already know that. So of course it would be kind of dumb to ask them like, hey, why are you selling? They're like, well, I told you, why we're selling. So, and then you could just recap that. So you told me that you're going to go to Ohio, to start your new job. So that's what's motivating you to sell. Yes. And then you're kind of like recapping anything that they've told you prior. So the way they, they know that you're listening to them. And then of course we go over, what the comps are, what it's like working with our team and our sales records. And then at the very end, the best advice that I got with this is just hand them the agreement, hand them a pen, and you'll know if they'll want to sign with you or not. You don't even have to ask. And so ever since I started doing that, I was like, that's so much easier than asking them. I just hand them the pen and hand them like, so this is the listing agreement. You said you want to list for this, blah, 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 blah. Explain it all to them, hand them the pen so the way they can sign it. And so I just would either explain it to them before, or I'll explain it to them as they're signing. What you're signing is this, and what you're signing is that. And if you have any questions after you sign, I'm more than happy to clarify anything on there. We're very transparent, like whatever you want me to clarify for you, I can. So that way it makes them feel better about signing. I'm not trying to like hook them into it. I just, well, I guess I am trying to kind of hook them into it, but I'm not trying to get them to sign something they don't understand is what I'm trying to say. So I always like to explain things. So I know that was a whirlwind of information, but that's how we've done our, like every listing appointment. We have done it where we haven't even seen the home, and sold it. So we have sold it from afar. But most cases, this is how we've done it in the past. And we've had, the pre-listing call, gotten all of the information, and then actually had the listing appointment. And then did it, done it that same way every time, like greet them, thank them for having you, ask for a walk around of the home, take pictures, take notes, down at the kitchen table, go over everything, sign contract, boom, you get home. You send them out a copy of the paperwork if you didn't, already have a copy of the paperwork for them there. But even if they do have a copy of the paperwork, it's a blank copy, so I always send them the signed copy once I'm home, because I want them to feel like, they need to have a copy of it anyways. They signed it. So they need to know like what they signed. And so I'll send them that. And then there is a template for once they did sign with you. There's a template you can send out on Follow Up Boss for that, to thank them and let them know what the next steps are. And then just put in Follow Up Boss, like follow up once a week, with them. And then you're doing the same thing after you listed their property. You're following up with them, once a week to give them updates. If you don't have any updates, just reassure them that you're marketing their property, and what showings have happened, what feedback has been received. And we also have things that you can use on GGU to give to them for a seller weekly marketing update. We've done different things. We've used that template before, or we've just hand typed of the feedback for the week. But just staying in touch with them to let them know like what has been done on their property, reassuring them, maybe, start prepping them for a price drop, like, hey, we received no showings, this week. And so you may want to prepare that in a few weeks. We may want to drop the price, based upon the activity level. So you can start future pacing them with that information. But I am tired of talking. Who has questions?
Oh, Tasha, thanks for the information. This was definitely helpful today.
Good. supposed to be, for you guys and let you guys know what all resources that you guys have available to you and things you can utilize to, help you get the, listing appointment and then help you secure the listing at the end of the day. So, these are just strategies that we've done that's tried and true. And so, we're teaching you guys exactly, how we've done things in the past.
That was great. Thanks, Tasha. I have a softball question for anybody that can answer it. And how do I check my EXP email? Because I thought it was linked to my Gwilt group, but I'm still trying to get into KV Core and they're sending it to my EXP and I don't know how to get there.
So there's a forwarding that you would do,
Yeah, I thought I did that.
but it's still not showing.
No, what is it? How do I get to the
Hey-
place where I would forward it from to double check it?
Hey, Justin, I think it's something that has to happen like from the EXP admin desk. I would recommend like going to EXP World and seeing if one of the techs there can help, because when they originally set that up, they set it up to go to my personal email, and I have been unsuccessful in changing it to my Gwilt Group email, but I'm pretty sure that's where I have to go to get that done.
All right, Joe. Thanks for the help, man. I'll roll over into there and see if they can get it hooked up. Thanks.
You're just reminding me I have one more thing to do.
Yep.
Any other questions, anybody? Alrighty. Well, we will, because there's a lot more to get through. We will be doing, I won't say we, just me, but I'll be doing another listing. So we'll do a listings part 3. Not sure how many parts we're gonna have to this because it does take a while to get through everything. Because I like to be pretty detailed when I am, discussing all this with you guys, just so that way you know what's available to you and how to explain it to your clients. And so I'll announce the next one. Apologize to you guys, it took me so long just to get to the second one. I just had a lot going on between being sick and everything. So, but I'll announce the next one and hopefully it doesn't take me a couple months to get to the next one. It shouldn't take me that long to get to the next one. So, but anyways, I'll announce it on the Gwilt Group marketing. What am I trying to say? Gwilt Group, whatever it is, team calendar, whatever that channel is. But I'll do
Slack
that.
channel.
Yeah, whatever Slack channel that is, man. I can tell you, like, my brain is fried for this week already. I think all of the NAR stuff is really jacking me up. I'm like, my brain, I feel like a scrambled egg right now. So, but anyways, I'll get that out to you guys when I plan on doing it again. And because I plan on talking about pretty much how we price listings and we kind of talked about staging or ordering photos and stuff like that before, but we can talk more about like staging and signposts and lock boxes and having the actual discussion with the seller. And so I would like to do a role play as well with people. So I think that would be fun and probably scary for some of you, but I think that would be fun to do a role play. And so hopefully we would have, more people here for that. Or maybe that's something we do on a team meeting. I don't know. We'll figure it out, but I think that would be good, especially given the changes that just recently happened. But anyways, I think that's it for today though. Thank you guys so much for being here and I will see you next time.
Thank you, Tasha.
All right. Thanks, everybody. See ya.
Thanks. Bye.